before we start, rest in peace to Jordan Neely.
Facts.
And more importantly, condolences to his family and loved ones.
Yeah.
So I have a lot I want to say on this, but I don't want to ramble.
Yeah.
So I think it would be healthy if we go back and forth with our ideas, because this is a very nuanced conversation.
Okay.
It's not just as cut and dry as looking at the video.
Yeah.
And then voicing an opinion, in my opinion. So
yeah,
I'm gonna let you start off, then I'm gonna feed off you on this.
Well, there was reports that Jordan Neely, who when he had clearly, it's been reported he has a mental illness. On that date, he was basically stating that it was basically.
And can we add one more thing? He was also houseless, which is important as well. Go ahead.
He was homeless, but he had mental illness. And on the train, he was complaining about he was tired of being hungry and starving and with nothing to eat, nothing to drink. I think that approach, how he was translating it, was very aggressive. So then a former U.S. Marine, if I'm not mistaken, it's Marine.
From West Islip, Long Island, which I know because I used to live in Long Island.
He took him down and put him in a chokehold. But it wasn't the fact that he put him in a chokehold. He put him in a chokehold for 15 minutes.
Yes.
On the video. What was even more disturbing about the video,
somebody else
that
holding
people
his arms
holding his arms, so he couldn't even fight back to say, yo, I can't breathe, or to like fight it back, fight him off. So probably had they not did that, he probably would still be here. But the fact that what was even more alarming, even after that, the gentleman was taken into custody and then let go. It was just fine. So being that this report, that this has all been caught on camera, now it's being addressed. It's not going away. So as of right now, with me and you doing this show, I don't think any charges have been pressed yet, but I'm pretty sure it's coming around the corner.
Yeah. The reason why I said it is very nuanced. So my take, well, not my take, but what I saw first is I tried to do my research. I tried to look on the outlets. And I found one thing disturbing that I want to touch on when I give my part of the take was I'm reading the comments from multiple people. It wasn't just one ethnic background. It was white, it was black, it was everybody. And they seem to get stuck on the fact that, oh, well, maybe he was being too aggressive on the train, or maybe he was issuing threats. Let's say I take that argument. Let's say I say you guys in the comments were correct, that he was being aggressive, loud, obnoxious, rude, and even threatening. You still don't have a right to choke somebody out for 15 minutes.
Facts.
And then another thing, oh, you guys don't know how it is. You don't live in NYC. Well, you have two people on the podcast.
Facts.
One who grew up in NYC, another one who kind of grew up in Long Island. But since I had to do business in New York, I had to always take the LIR into Jamaica, Queens, into the city, to go to the Bronx, Harlem, Brooklyn. So I pretty much been to that.
Yeah, you lived in Long Island.
I lived in the tri-state area.
I lived in Brooklyn before.
You lived in Brooklyn.
So
we know what it's like to be on that train late at night by yourself, see panhandlers, see people with mental illness, see homeless people.
Yeah.
We're not coming from a place of out-of-towners talking on something that we don't know about.
Facts.
I just felt that we are getting to a point where we're too desensitized to death.
Yeah.
I don't understand, even if you are correct with him being out of disorderly, however you want to phrase it, there's no way you see somebody getting choked with their eyes rolling back in their head and everybody's sitting there like, what's for dinner today?
Right. Right.
That's part one that's disturbing. Do you want to add on?
I just think that the most disturbing part of that, at least video wise, is that he's getting choked out and that dude was holding his hands because they're going after this
black
guy.
Or Hispanic. I'm gonna label him as a brown person.
Yeah,
he's a person of color, and I'm not saying he should have knew better, but let me go here with this. We're both grown men. I grew up around a lot of brothers and cousins, roughhousing, wrestling.
Right.
We all know what it is when somebody puts you in a fiend, as we call it.
Yeah.
If somebody gets you in a good enough, as we call it, a fiend, you got maybe 10 seconds to make a move.
Yeah.
You got 10 seconds to tap out. Yo, I'm done. Get off me before you pass out. I've been choked out plenty of, playing around as a kid.
Yeah.
The worst thing somebody can do is while you're getting choked out is to hold your arms down. You have no course of defense.
Right.
Here's another nuance point to this. One of my brothers did wrestling, like school wrestling. From that position, when you're behind somebody in a choke move, there's another easier way to take somebody down that's less threatening. It's called a full Nelson.
Right.
You lock your hands behind their head, they can't move.
Right.
So when you got him down to subdue him because you felt threatened, you could have easily put him in a full Nelson.
Right.
You could have easily rolled him over on his side, locked your hands. Now he can't do nothing.
Right.
I know what the answer is, but I just want your opinion of how this Marine who's trained for being a Marine didn't think of that since he knew so much.
What you mean asking why he didn't do that?
Yeah,
because
we know.
He had every intention of taking dude out. He had every intention of taking dude out. And he was a person of color. And he felt like, yo, I can do it. And there must have been a comfort zone. There must have been, like, I don't want to say he's done this before, but he must have been in a situation before or in an environment that made him feel safe to do that, knowing that he knew there was going to be no repercussion coming from it. He had to have known that prior to it. He held on to the man for 15 minutes. I mean, you can't explain that. What was you thinking? 15 minutes, the man couldn't breathe. It looked like he couldn't even talk or breathe.
No, he's literally turning, eyes rolling in the back of his head. Yeah. You see veins popping out of his forehead. Like, if you, like I said, we grown up as boys, roughhousing. If you ever been put in a yoke, a fiend, whatever you want to call it, that's one of the worst moves you can get put in. Yeah. So you know if you're doing it to somebody, you need to let go. You need to let them breathe. You don't need to keep sitting there choking them. Right. The reason why NYPD and law enforcement around the country, I think in most states, have that move banned is because you can't control how somebody's body react to it. Somebody's body might be able to hold up for 2 minutes. Another person could be athletic. You put them in a fiend in 15 minutes, their heart could stop. So that's one of the reasons why they outlawed that move. It's the reason why Derek Chauvin is going to jail for life for doing that to George Floyd. Right. And that's a nuanced part of this discussion. Because I saw people with their camera phones out looking, but not one person said, you got him on the ground. You stop choking him. Right. Well, and not to defend those people, but then there was the cops. That's why they got charged. They got in front, and, they got their guns. So it's like if you jump over there and go push this cop off. That wasn't an argument. Yeah. I just used that analogy. No, because I'm talking about the people on the train sitting there with their phones and then the other two people holding his arms down. Yeah. Like you're being complicit in somebody being, like the optics were that bad where it drew comparison to the George Floyd situation. But go ahead. I don't know this young man's family members. I could just tell you if that was mine, I'm going to want names. You better hope the cops get to him before I do. So I would say. I can't imagine a family member. There's some family members that have mental issues, I know. And I'm pretty sure if I saw that on video, you better hope I don't get to him first. I think the problem, like you said, one of the problems was that he just went down there and explained himself and was let go. You know, reason why that is kind of disturbing, because even with self-defense law in New York, it's kind of tricky. Like I took a pistol permit course a while ago. You have to be so careful even when you have your pistol permit. For example, I'll just give you a brief example. If somebody breaks into your house, according to the instructor who was training us in a pistol permit course, that person could be whipping your behind, throwing you around your house. If you get your gun and go to cock it and point it, and the person starts to retreat, they say, I, and they start running, you can't shoot them in the back. Now, I'm not saying anybody's going to know because they're in the house. Right. But according to New York state law, once the person starts to retreat, you literally have to let them go because they're no longer a threat to your life. So in using that example, when the person was down on the ground, was they without a weapon? I don't think that's talked about enough. He wasn't armed with anything.
Right.
Not
That's
a
what I'm
pencil,
saying.
not a pocket knife, not mace. He literally
Yeah.
had no. So once he was down, what threat was he to anybody on the train?
Nothing. No, not a threat at all.
So how was he able to comfortably explain himself to the cops? And the cops said, "Oh, that makes sense. Go home. Get on the LIRR and go to West Islip."
That's crazy.
I know that neighborhood because I used to go to college kind of in the middle of that.
Right.
That's like a rich neighborhood and pushback.
Right.
My college was in Oakdale, which is close to East Islip. Trust me, I used to live in Long Island for a long time.
Right.
I ran through all those towns, Patchogue, all of them,
Right.
Selden, you know. So I know what type of neighborhood he comes from.
Right.
What do you think with this public outcry should happen? I know what me and you talked about what we would do, but what example do you think needs to be made? Because if this is let go and charges aren't pursued, what do you think is going to happen?
It's going to go bad for him fast. Something's going to happen to him. Because now they know where you at. And
They released the name.
They released the name. So it's going to want answers. I think what's going to happen is he's going to have to if New York State wants to do the right thing, what they have to do is make an example out of him and give him full time for whatever he did, for whatever that is. That's I don't want to say it.
He wouldn't get charged with
attempted murder.
He won't get charged with murder 1 or murder 2. It would be probably involuntary manslaughter. And I'm not a lawyer, so don't quote me, but he will probably be looking at the lower end of involuntary manslaughter, which for his family wouldn't quite be justice, but it's better than letting him go chill out and
walking around just freely, like however he's gonna do.
Now the disturbing part, like I said when I was reading the comments, was the people was like, "Oh, well, yeah, I just don't know how it is. Like we get tired of these panhandlers," and it was everybody. It wasn't just the opposite complexion. It was our people too, all up in them comments.
Yeah, but he got choked to death, man. Come on.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, he got choked to death. So, I mean, see, they're not looking at they're looking at it from that perspective.
That's what I want your reflection on.
And the thing is what they don't get is somebody that may not look like them might feel comfortable doing that to them just because they feel threatened.
That's what I wanted you to talk
about.
So
you condoning that. You condoning that. You're just gonna make it worse. Maybe in the future that could be you on the ground,
or your son, or your little cousin,
just minding their business.
Yeah.
And then just because they feel threatened by a look, the way their body language, boom.
Can I add this in? Not just that, like, and I'll just speak personally. Outside of mental health, like, I have people in my family with something simple as ADHD. Sometimes, a little teenager might not want to sit still, might start acting erratic because they have ADHD or autism or be on the spectrum. So like you said, if you're condoning that, what happens if your little 16-year-old brother is going through autism, is on the spectrum, and is having I guess it's called a breakdown, and now somebody feels the need, let's get him on the ground and restrain him and choke him, and then now your little brother, your little nephew, somebody in your family is gone.
Yeah, you can't get that life back. So, I don't understand how this dude's even still walking around. And let me also say this, if it was the tables turned and it was a white person that was acting like that and a person of color choked him out like that, he would still be locked up. They wouldn't even let him walk out of the precinct. Even Marine or not, they wouldn't even let him walk out. He would have to go through the whole judicial process just to get out.
Well, like I said earlier, even with legal self-defense, because I'm gonna parse my words correctly. I'm not saying I condone any form of murder, but self-defense is self-defense. Even if you had legal grounds for self-defense, like I gave you an example about your house, you would still get pressed to the 10th degree. Yeah. They're gonna do ballistic reports in your house.
Yeah.
Oh, you sure this was a legal shooting? Blah blah blah. Yeah, they're not just gonna say, "Oh, okay, go." Like I heard of a case. Matter of fact, there was a young lady being abused by her husband a couple years back, I think in New Jersey, and she fired a warning shot. I think she's still in jail to this day.
Are you serious?
Yeah, that was a big case. I forgot the lady's name, but it was a big case about that, and they was talking about gun laws.
Yeah.
So even in a legal self-defense, you still have situations where a person is fighting for their freedom, depending on what state they're in, the statute of limitations, what exactly happened. So again, I'm finding it very hard to understand, like you. How did this happen? How did the cops look at this man on the ground, told him, oh, well, when we took him to the hospital, he passed out. No, he looked dead on the train.
Yeah. Yeah.
So how did they see that? Say, oh, he's passed out. You know what that brought me to? Not to ramble.
No.
The movie with Q-Tip. There's a movie with Q-Tip and Fat Joe in it where he pushed Fat Joe on the train. It's a movie from our generation. I forgot the name of it, but it was self-defense. Like Fat Joe was like, the character of Fat Joe was like picking on Q-Tip, and he pushed him. And he was like, oh, self-defense. They had to do 20 years. Like, you, even in self-defense, you can't legally choke somebody out.
Right. Yeah, no,
So
I get it, yeah.
I hope for, as you said, for the sake of, I don't want to say doing the right thing, but we have to have some type of legislation in place, because if this is acceptable, it's going to get worse in the future.
Facts.
Let me just go here. Not just with this, but you know what they're talking about in school, right?
No, what you talking about?
You know, they're talking about arming teachers with guns and hall monitors with guns. Where do you think that's going in 5 years?
That's going to be worse.
For who?
The kids.
Oh, I can't control this 14-year-old. He looked at me wrong. I felt threatened.
Pow. And his life is over.
Oh, he's been in detention 3 times, so I guess he deserved it, because that's what they're doing to this dude right now. They pulling up his record.
Right. That's just insane. That's just insane. And it's just sad that, I mean, there'll be more from this coming, I'm pretty sure, because the minute that video came out, the public outrage, you know what I mean, that this guy is still out here walking for free. He's not even being tried by the judicial system. Damn. Now, if that ain't privilege, I don't know what is.
It's privilege, but like I said, it speaks to a bigger situation and we had to touch on this on another podcast, but with the cost of living in New York and California and all these metropolitan areas, we're seeing a rise of more homeless people.
Yeah.
And you might not realize it, but if you're on social media, you'll see a lot of people talking about, yo, I'm living in my car right now. Truck life. They making it look good. I ain't fronting. They're making it look very good. But the rise of homelessness is on the rise big time. People can't afford $2,600 studios, but they got a truck outside.
Yeah.
And real quick, can you talk to how, when you used to bring me through Brooklyn, when we used to go run through Medgar Evans years ago, how that section of Brooklyn looked versus how it look now?
It was it was Crown Heights, so it was a predominantly black neighborhood. If you look at it now, it's like a lot cleaned up. Not that it wasn't cleaned up before, but they added more buildings for Medgar Evers College. And on top of that, like, it looks like a downtown section, like a downtown area. And the majority of the businesses are not from people that look like us. So
gentrification, that's what I was saying.
Yeah. So it's not getting better. You know what I'm saying?
So that's the discussion for another podcast, so we won't take up too much time. But with the rise of inflation, job loss, the rise of homelessness, people can't afford basic apartments, gentrification in metropolitan areas.
Yeah.
This can't be swept under the rug, because then that's going to become the new normal. And I know people was like, oh, no, that's a one-off.
Yeah.
Trust me. If he is allowed to get let go with a smack on the wrist and not be prosecuted, with gentrification, with the rise of homelessness, that will be the new normal.
Right.
And I would hate to see that. You got any more to add?
No, I just think that, I always express like the fact of two things, that it was somebody that looked like us that was holding his hand arms. But I think we need to start. You know what China Max said?